This is Nasha Kasha, Ukrainian Almanac, 28 minutes of stories for everyone about Ukrainian life. I'm your reporter, Stefan Andrusiak. This episode was originally aired a year ago. I hope you'll enjoy it. It's about my very best friends. About a year ago, I responded to an initiative by the president of the Ukrainian National Federation. Renata Roman warmly recalls dancing to the songs of Rushnychok when she was in her early teens. Today, newer immigrants from Ukraine and even young Canadians don't know about Rushnychok, she said, and then added, "Would you write something?" And so, here for the next 28 minutes is the story of Rushnychok.
Наша пісня, рідний стрій, ми хлопці із Канади, Rushnychok. Ми хлопці із Канади, гей-гей, гей-гей, не звикли до паради, гей-гей, гей-гей. Бажаємо лиш одне з ним все, скромне, щире, і це все. Ми хлопці із Канади, гей-гей, гей-гей.
Rushnychok met for the first time in 1969 at the intersection of Fairmount and Hutchison Streets in Montreal. The Ukrainian National Federation Hall is still a stately landmark on the northeast corner. From that starting point, Rushnychok would travel to where old world memories intersected with the demands of a new generation. Our success would lie in appealing to both sets of travelers and dancing them across the divide. My father, Mykola, had invested with 14 others to build a Montreal restaurant and reception hall called La Steppe. He asked me one fall day if I would ask some of my friends to play at La Steppe's inaugural New Year's party. I played drums at weddings with Andriy Harasimovich on guitar and his older brother Yura. Occasionally, my friend Yurko Shtik would also sit in. Then, one night, Yura announced he would be stowing his accordion to study dentistry. Now, I had heard that Iohan Osidach played accordion and that he had a beautiful tenor. Iohan was president of our University Student Arts Association at Loyola. One noon hour, friends were playing broomball over at the sports complex, and I knew that Iohan was their goalie. I remember watching from the stands. After the game, I introduced myself and I made my pitch. A week or so later, 4 of us arrived at the UNF Hall for our first practice. We all remember playing that first New Year's Eve. As night approached morning, the crowd wouldn't leave. Iohan remembers having exhausted our meager repertoire and repeating all the songs again, adding, "I don't think anybody noticed." The revelers cheered, more, more, more. Finally, the manager, Mr. Petrashko, turned off the electricity to our amplifiers. That night, as 1969 welcomed the next decade, we sensed that we would play again, soon and often. In those days, Zabava bands, or dance bands, wore white shirts and suits on stage. They sat and played from music sheets, delivered old standards, and pretty much kept to themselves. Our fans associated us with the Beatles because, like the Fab Four, we played our own compositions. We wore tailor-made Ukrainian-themed attire. We projected a unified look. When we played traditional songs, we delivered them in three-part harmony and injected them with new rhythms and rock overtones. Our repertoire enthusiastically embraced both traditional sentiments and contemporary life, here and now, here in Ukrainian, now in the 1970s. In this place, in our own language, we too were game changers. Along with our original works, Rushnychok, of course, would source and showcase many beloved Ukrainian traditional ballads. Among them, there were songs about love lost. There was this song about the girl next door.
Заспіваймо пісню веселеньку, про Сусіку молоденьку, про Сусіку заспіваймо, серце наше звеселяймо. Ой, Сусіко, 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 позич мені решетку.
Then there's the song about the sorry young man who got married and now wonders, why?
Жінку з діжки витягати, гуся-цюся, гуся-ця, оженився, ой біда, хотіла, нема, ой нема, ой нема.
Also at the core of our repertoire stood songs of valiant fighters for Ukraine's freedom. My Rushnychok was just such a lullaby, tender and loving, dedicated to the Sichovi Stritsi, the Ukrainian riflemen who fought in the First World War and on other fronts. Among them was Yurko's father, Franz Josef.
Ой, люлі, 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 спи серце моє, спи, то колиш у туї. Ой, люлі, серце моє.
Another was the ballad of Yuri Titunik, which was the centerpiece of the Ukrainian Bandurist chorus's magnificent concerts.
Гарматним димом розкотилися луни, і вітер степами гуде. Літає посоки, кружляє тютюник, тютюник на Київ іде.
And what would a Ukrainian repertoire be without a song about a willow tree and the girl standing next to it, just waiting for her handsome young man?
Розквітає калина, зеленіє верба, моя пісня прилине, і зникає журба. Та калина чарує мої сонячні дні, та дівчина дарує своє серце мені, а верба над край водою молодіє, наче доля, хай завжди мене.
There were songs about the moon in the sky and the love one can find beneath it.
Ви мені очі відкоротили, де ж ви навчились своїх людей.
Not all of our songs were romantic. In a decade of dark and overcast skies over Ukraine, we expressed the longing to see the sunshine, for its people to live in freedom, with dignity.
З нами правдолюбивий світ, рветься серце до сонця, рветься серце до волі, кличе нас вічна, мила і дорога.
Bassist and vocalist Rushnychok remembers that, quote, "Throughout our musical career, we were blessed with many good friends. One such person was Boris Budny. He's an accomplished playwright as well as a poet. From time to time, Boris would send us some of his poems, and any one of us would try to put them to music. A number of these collaborations worked out very well and resulted in memorable songs," says Yurko. The 12 songs you'll hear next are original Rushnychok compositions. Here's why I believe each and every one of them is indeed memorable. Song number 12. We spoke truth to power, demanding human rights in what was then the Soviet Union. The Beatles were asserting, "Don't know how lucky you are, boy," back in the USSR. Rushnychok countered with Voля Ukraini. We reminded people, men and women back in the USSR were banished to die in the Gulag. Quote, "I think it important to mention our belief in a democratic Ukraine. Some of our songs were prophetic in declaring Ukraine would be free," says Johan. Number 11, Lubimся. It was a call for Ukrainians to set aside their past differences. We were summoning our audiences to embrace. Where resolution is peaceful, there too will exist contentment. This kind of call to action was unheard of in Ukrainian popular music at the time. We would close every performance with the crowd standing, singing along. Number 10. Andriy Harasimovich and Larissa had been childhood sweethearts. Now, all grown up, Andriy penned a love letter, and we recorded it, Moya Kochana, my beloved one, on our first album. I'll give you all, що серденько бажає, that your heart desires.
Я тебе полюбив, тільки не знаю, чи хочеш моє серце навіки і цю душу глибоку, моя кохана.
Number 9 is our song Burya. It's a composition that may have inspired another popular band's name. It's about a man lying in the arms of his lover, telling her that the storm may be raging outside, but nема бурі в почуттях моїх. There is no such storm or burya lying in your embrace.
Сидить сорока на ляці, я тебе зупину, ледве видно мряці сірую хатину. У небі різні ночі, опилися розвіє, ночі поросипле в очі, дерева темніє. А я лежу в обіймах твоїх, приємно зітхаю, нема бурі в почуттях моїх, бо лиш тебе.
Number 8. The temperature was really turned up in the Boris Budny Andriy Harasimovich composition You, or Te. I once thought that I would never love again. That was before I looked into your eyes. Now I feel the heat of your lips. I ignite at your touch. My blood boils as you arrive. Кипить кров твоїм приходом. Sensuous and loving, the dance climaxes with a sweet double entendre that leaves listeners asking, did they just really say that?
Тепер горить вогонь твоїм дотиком і кипить кров твоїм приходом. Казав я колись, що любить вже більш не буду.
Number 7. Rushnychok wrote both the words and the music to Litzar. Now, Litzar can be loosely translated as a white knight. A newcomer arrives in town, on the scene, and the girl Yurko is in love with is distracted. Pro drugo mriala. The singer is dismissed as a parade of admirers pursues this new arrival. This kind of heartbreak is timeless. Original Rushnychok song number 6. Should I go or should I listen to my heart and stay? It's a question that crosses cultural boundaries and genders, and it is a question asked by Boris Budny and Євгено Сідач in a hot tango called Listen to My Heart. Чи прислухатимешся до серця мого?
Пора, і я вже мушу з тобою попрощатись. І держу я твою ніжну руку, бо не хочу розлучатись. Якщо затримаю ще трошки довше, чи ти слухатимешся до серця мого? Ну так прийшов.
Number 5. Boris with Yurko co-wrote a cheeky tango called Don't Blame Me, Не винуй мене. It was our homage to composer-musician Bogdan Veselovsky. You can blame the towering mountains, the stormy sea, the thorny rose, blame them all for my falling in love with you. Just don't blame me.
Винуйте все, та тільки не мене, що полюбив, коли же я тебе, під чаром незабутної краси, вірну любов свою мені даси.
Винуйте осінь, літо і весну, винуй холодну снігову зиму, винуй шелест вітра у деревах і річки шум при берегах.
Number 4. Your Winter's Love. Твоя любов зайшла зимою was a Budny Osidach composition about birds flying away as love also cools and goes south. Number 3. Yurko and Євген collaborated on My Homeland, Zemlya Moya, which gives voice to immigrants everywhere who long for their homeland while acknowledging how privileged they are and feel to be living in the land that has so generously accepted them. Number 2. Many early Ukrainian settlers were driven by discrimination to change their names to something shorter, more palatable to the Anglo-Saxon ear. Boris and Yurko wrote Reflections, Я, мабуть, колись тут був. The singer recalls what he gave up in exchange for compliance and acceptance.
Я, мабуть, колись тут був для нації обличчя, котри майже не забув, не знав я їх тоді і не хотів їх знати, бо не було це в моді. Я пішов у бурхливий світ здобувати собі.
Number 1. Ilhan wrote a melody to one of Taras Shevchenko's poems. The song only lasts a concise 1 minute 22 seconds, but it offers a whole new way to deliver the words of Shevchenko, who is Ukraine's most beloved son. Учітеся, брати мої, learn well, my brothers. Ukrainians have grown up with that advice. Learn from others and never ever turn away from who you are. Our audiences were singing along to his words, dancing the dance, walking the walk.
Учітеся, брати мої, думайте, читайте, і чужого навчайтесь, свого не цурайте, і чужого навчайтесь, свого не цурайте. Бо хто матір забуває, того Бог карає. Чужі люди цураються, хату не пускають. Чужі люди цураються, хату не пускають.
Nasha Kasha comes to you from Radio Western 94.9 FM on the campus of Western University in London, Ontario, Canada. We're heard on CHMR 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland, on CKDU 88.1 FM in Halifax, on Local 107.3 FM in St. John, New Brunswick, on CJAS Radio 93.5 FM in Saint Augustine, Quebec, on CJLO 1690 AM in Montreal, on CFRC 101.9 FM in Kingston, on CFMU 93.3 FM in Hamilton, on CKMS 102.7 FM in Kitchener-Waterloo, on CJAM 99.1 FM in Windsor and Detroit, on CKLU 96.7 FM in Sudbury, on CILU 102.7 FM in Thunder Bay, on 101.5 UMFM in Winnipeg, on CJTR 91.3 FM in Regina, on CFMQ 98.1 FM in Hudson Bay, Saskatchewan, on CFBX 92.5 FM in Kamloops, on CJSF 90.1 FM in Vancouver, and on CHLY 101.7 FM in Nanaimo, British Columbia. On Canada Day, July 1st, 1988, at the Contemporary Ukrainian Music Awards held in Edmonton, organizers recognized Rushnychok. 2 achievement awards celebrated the quartet's contribution to the Ukrainian recording industry. In September of 2008, on stage at the Montreal Ukrainian Festival, each of us received a haramota, a plaque for our podvednitska robota, for our disciplined work to maintain the good name of our nation. Then, in 2015, the Father John Scholarships Foundation honored Rushnychok at its annual dinner for services rendered to the Montreal Ukrainian community. Through the years, friends and fellow travelers have richly rewarded each of us with reminiscences, quiet thanks, and smiles.
Десь звежі в нічі в днину, чути ратуш б'є годину, Катеринка в ринку грає, всіх до себе закликає. Льоскопуйте, добрі люди, щастя доля, щось здобуде, де ж така нагода друга, льос вам відтягне папу.
Last year in Ukraine, in Cyrillic lettering, in print and on the web, the regional Hazata Volyn declared that Rushnychok was the Ukrainian Beatles. Beatles, it read, yet again. 3 days later, Rushnychok would be whole no more. Andriy Harasimovich died June 26, 2019. Quote, although he is gone now, he was in many ways the heart and soul of Rushnychok, says Yurko. Andriy was born to sing and was never happier than when he was on stage in front of a crowd doing what he did best. He knew the songs, knew how to perform them, and knew how to make sure we understood their true meaning. We all miss him and his unique kindness, gentleness, but most of all, his passion for everything Ukrainian, Yurko says.
Ой, літа орел, літа сизий, попід
In October of 2020, Yurko, Iwan, and I were invited to fly to Lviv, Ukraine. 2 tribute concerts were planned. Some of Ukraine's most popular artists were to have staged our 12 Rushnychok original songs, adding their own star power and interpretations, a significant closing of the circle. The pandemic has put those plans on hold. And that is the story of Rushnychok. I'd like to gratefully acknowledge that Nasha Kasha is supported in part by the Shevchenko Foundation and the Ukrainian Credit Union. This is your reporter, Stefan Andrusyak. New Pathway Ukrainian News delivers news and insight every week in English and Ukrainian. Subscribe today at newpathway.ca.
Над землею проміння зори, ми гуртом вирушаємо знову, і упевнені наші ході, не завадить ні вітер, ні втома, світ є гарний, ми молоді.
Back in a week, God willing, до милої зустрічі. За тиждень часу, дорогі слухачі.